So, like I was saying in the other part of the video, I'm going to give some examples here of how pharmaceuticals stretch the truth. They then give these lies to the doctors, and then the doctors repeat them on a regular basis, and then people get seriously hurt or die because of it. So, I'll give many examples, but I'm going to start with one that maybe people are more familiar with. So, I'm sure people by now have heard of OxyContin made by Purdue. Now, what they might not know is why the doctors were pushing that medication. So the representatives for Purdue, or for these companies that make painkillers, had on their paperwork, had on their representative information that they give to doctors, that OxyContin was non-addictive, meaning an extremely potent opiate that was not addictive. And they would sell that to the doctors saying, oh, we have this great painkiller. It's a synthetic opiate, and it's non-addictive. And then the doctors would repeat that and use that information to prescribe. So they were over-prescribing on the word of a pharmaceutical company's representative who wants to make money, and some paperwork that they were handed that obviously was only researched by the pharmaceutical company who wants to make money. So you got these representatives going to doctor after doctor after doctor after doctor, claiming that they have this very, very strong opiate, and it's not addictive. They don't have to worry. They can give their patients as much as they want. And every single time there was a problem, every single time a patient got addicted, they said, oh no, it's still not addictive. You just need to give him more. You just need to give him more. You just need to give him more. And many people died because of that. But don't think it's just this one medication that has this problem. There are hundreds of other medications that are lied about by the representatives, pushed by the pharmaceutical companies, and then the doctors take those one-word phrases and repeat them back to the patients, trying to comfort them as the patients die or suffer. I mean, many people suffered from that OxyContin for year after year after year, and the doctors would just lie straight to their face and repeat, oh, OxyContin is non-addictive, so here's some more. That hurt and killed lots of people. Now, there's another medication I've been on and tapered off of, also made by the same pharmaceutical companies that make these other opiates, and it's called Suboxone. Now, it has an opiate blocker in it, but it has a synthetic low-dose opiate in it as well. And here's the lie that with plenty of research you can figure out that this is a lie too. The only people making this statement are the pharmaceutical companies, and they're passing it on to the doctors that prescribe it. So what the doctors have said, and this is a statement that is a total lie, is that that medication works for 24 hours all the time. Now, yes, it does work for 24 hours when you start taking it and you start the dose. But if you're on the same medication for 5 years, you grow a tolerance. There's a thing called tolerance. If you take anything from alcohol to benzos to opiates to even regular medication for seizures or whatever else, over long periods of time, you grow a tolerance, and it doesn't work as long in your system. If you're on a seizure medication for 10 years, 10 years later, they're going to need to go up, or at some point, they're going to need to go up, because you're going to grow a tolerance to it. And that's just common knowledge. But a lot of doctors who prescribe these opiates will say, oh no, you're good for 24 hours after many years of being on the same dosage. And that's a big problem, because they don't fully understand what's going on, as well as each person has a different tolerance level. So yes, it should be working for 24 hours, but there's a couple different things you should know about that. One, how long you've been on it, how much you've been taking before you saw that doctor, as well as this duds that come out of a factory. A lot of people don't realize this, but when you're on medications like Suboxone, there's many different forms of it. There's a generic film that's printed out through like a squeezy machine. Think of like a fruit roll-up machine. They have a big factory that pumps these out similar to fruit roll-ups. They also have pills that are white. They got pills that are called stop signs. They have pills that are orange and round. They also have versions of it without the naloxone that has been proven to be better because the naloxone interferes with the synthetic opiate. So there's several problems with this medication. But do the doctors try to have conversations with the patient about these problems? No. Do they try to understand the patients, what they're going through? No. No, they repeat these representatives one-word phrasing, like Oxycontin is non-addictive, or just go up on it, or this will last 24 hours for everybody. That's not true. If you will grow a tolerance no matter who you are over a certain period of time. Now I'll give you another example. I'm sure you heard of Flonase over the counter. Now the Flonase I'm talking about is a nasal steroid. Now it's a little different than most regular steroids. It works in the nasal passages and it's not that risky like a regular steroid. It's a nasal steroid. But if you do your research on nasal steroids and Flonase, you'll see a lot of warnings about people with heart conditions. Okay. Okay, well, that's simple. Consult your doctor if you have any heart conditions before taking Flonase. But I have also brought this up to my doctor as well. I've been having some heart problems. I have a cardiologist, and I've been in and out of the emergency room for several things. As well as my roommate has documentation that half his heart is dead. Half his heart does not pump blood, and that's very bad. He could die from that. They don't even know exactly how he's living with a half a working heart. And that's because these doctors know very little, actually. They don't want to do their research or their due diligence. So Flonase has already been studied and shown to cause heart problems with people who have existing heart problems. Now, when I brought this up to my doctor and explained to her, should I be worried about Flonase, or my roommate with a heart condition, should he be worried about taking Flonase? She goes, oh, no, no, I've never heard of anything with heart conditions and Flonase. No, take as much as you want, no matter if you're having a heart condition or not. I think that you got that someplace else. So I said, okay, I must be wrong. And this was at Goodwin, what is a food pantry that also has doctors and deals with mentally ill patients all day. They're kind of drug them and send them away. That's all they're good for. So, but I listen to my doctor, and I wait. I continue taking the Flonase, and my heart seems to race, seems to attack me worse. Like if I wake up from allergies from the mold in the middle of the night, and I use Flonase, oh my God, does it pound? I can't even walk. Oh, my heart goes out of control. And I've explained this to the doctor again, and they go, oh, well, it must just be the mold. I go, yeah, the mold is doing it, but I think there's something else going on here. Because I'm dead asleep and my heart literally feels like it's attacking me and waking me up out of sleep. And the mold's definitely affecting me, and then it triggers my neurological activity, so I start seizing in my bed. I can't stand up, can't move, can't dial a phone to get 911. This seems like a big problem to me. Oh, no, no, it's probably just your anxiety. You'll be fine. And then send me away with a bunch of pills. I've had anxiety for 25 years. Ever since New Mexico and my mother was drugging me and giving me full bottles of Epicac and screaming up and down the house, that gave me real flashbacks. I know anxiety, and yes, it makes your heart pound, makes you sweaty, makes you shake. But I've had that for 25 years. I'm very familiar with the symptoms. And this seems to happen when there is no anxiety. There is no anxiety. I'll be happy watching a TV show, laughing about it, and then all of a sudden I'll close the windows, and 15 minutes later, I'm getting very sick. Then I open the windows and I get better. I go outside to somebody else's house where I'm having an anxiety attack and it doesn't happen. I mean, I have a lot of anxiety over new people, and I'm over at their house having anxiety, but yet the symptoms that I'm talking about aren't happening during my anxiety attack. Then I bring this person over to my house, close the windows, and I feel like I'm going to die. Now, what are the difference? Well, his house has no mold. He has a fireplace heater. There's not a speck of mold anywhere in it. My house, I have pictures that you can stick your fist out the window and wave to people. It's rotted. We have a waterfall that forms in our bathroom due to the outside rot that's so bad. I took a picture under the sink in this big drop hole that goes to the bottom floor. It's all mold under there. The drop ceiling on the top is covered in mold. I mean, like a dump truck worth. It's very obvious that this is from mold inhalation. If you do your research, then that will tell you what's wrong. But I also researched the Flonase, trying to look up what could be happening where that makes my chest worse. Well, yes, a steroid inhibitor like Flonase, that is a nasal steroid, and actually it's not a steroid inhibitor, it's a nasal steroid, can cause your heart rate to go up. It can cause some heart discomfort. Now, that's not the cause of my symptoms, no. But if I use that for the allergen of mold, it makes my heart problem worse. And I've brought this up with a new doctor, and now she's looking into it. But she doesn't know enough about Flonase, and she hasn't read the warnings on the back of the box. She hasn't gone online and seen the studies. I have. That's why I gotta be my best doctor. Because these doctors see my Social Security case. They see, oh, just give them pills and send them out. I'm gonna get killed if I keep doing that. That's a fantasy that my mother created to cover up her own ass. I know that. I've done that enough times. I have taken the pills as prescribed. I've listened to the dumbass advice like, oh, Oxycontin is a non-addictive substance. That is total nonsense. Oxycontin is addictive. But yet, the doctors were repeating this phrase. Oh no, Oxycontin is a non-addictive opiate. That's bullshit, but they were saying it anyways. They'll tell you that Suboxone will last 24 hours in your system, and yes, that is what it says on the label. That's what the pharmaceuticals push. But you got to keep in account tolerances. If you're on the same medication for 4 years at the same dose, you're going to change. It's not going to last for 24 hours anymore. And I had a conversation with an older doctor about that. And she said, oh yeah, most doctors are just stupid, she told me. Basically, she said, most doctors are stupid. She goes, yes, if you're on medication for long periods of time, like a year or 2 years, something that lasted 24 hours might start only lasting 18 hours. That's absolutely the way it works, she told me. And that's because she was 70. She's a doctor in her 60s or 70s. So, she has experience and she knows how these things work. Meanwhile, all these other doctors are telling patients who have been on the medication for a year and a half, oh no, you can't be waking up at 3 a.m. vomiting and being sick, because the pharmaceutical company told me that this medication lasts for 24 hours. So you must be making it up. And this is what they tell a lot of the people I work with. I work with a lot of addicts, and they're very upset when they're sick and their medication stops working after 2 years and they get this crap, and I have to explain to them why they're getting this crap. It's because the pharmaceutical companies want to push this medication. They have representatives who have plenty of paperwork. They repeat these phrases to the doctor, and then the doctor just repeats these phrases back to you. Now, that's why you got to explain and give them a thing. Oh, so my tolerance will stay the same over all 4 year period, because I've been on it for 2 years now, and I've been on the same dose for 2 years. So that won't change at all. My tolerance, there is no such thing. And then the doctor will go, well, yeah, tolerances do change. And what happens when tolerances change? If I've been on the same medication for 2 years in the same dosage, what can I experience? Well, you can experience it wearing off sooner. You can experience it not working as well. And then you stop the doctor and say, oh, well, that's what I'm experiencing. It works fine for 10 to 16 hours, but now after about 16 to 20, for 4 hours, I'm vomiting and shaking. Or I'm vomiting and having withdrawal symptoms. And these addicts need to have good doctors. I mean, this isn't that confusing. It's very simple stuff. But see, they rather just repeat these phrases that the pharmaceuticals give them, like for the Oxycontin company, oh, this opiate is non-addictive. And then when doctors years later come up with a complaint and say, hey, we're having problems with our patient, oh, you just have to give them more. And then they say, give them more. And then they give them more. Then they create an even stronger pill to give them more. Well, that's a big problem. That's called addiction. That's exactly what the pharmaceutical companies were saying would not happen. They're saying that this medication is non-addictive, Meanwhile, it was extremely addictive. So is a lot of other medications that aren't being properly handled. There's lots of them out there. As well as children are given very dangerous medications. I was on Buspar, Remeron, Lamictal, Haldol, Seroquel, Trazodone, and that's only some I was on at the same time. I could go on and on with that list. I must have been on at least 100 different medications in my lifetime. At least 80 of them between the ages of 5 and 18. Now, some of those are generics and over the counter, but still, over the counter medicines have to be used just as carefully as prescriptions. I have lots more examples I'll go over, but a good example is that the doctors are not looking into the side effects of things like Flonase and listening to the patient complaint. I've seen this with many other people who are low income. They get these nonsensical answers like that Oxycontin is non-addictive. That means not addictive. That's nonsensical. Or that Suboxone, what's a synthetic opiate, over a 2-3 year period of time will work the same way. That's also nonsensical. A doctor should be aware of tolerances and how medications work. Over long periods of time, there's a reason why you go up slowly. There's a reason why you come down slowly. And when you come down slowly, you can experience symptoms. Well, that's the same thing you're doing when you got a patient waking up at 16 hours later with experiencing withdrawal symptoms. But yet the doctors will tell a lot of these, and I get this complaint a lot from my customers and the addicts I've worked with. They'll say that the doctor just says that they can't be experiencing anything. Basically, that they're just imagining their vomit coming out of their mouth. They're just imagining shitting their pants. They're just imagining sweating bullets. That's just imagined. And when it's not, if you go to any detox and you see these people going on a taper, they have these more mildly. Or they'll say, oh, you can't feel anything. The pharmaceutical company said you shouldn't feel anything. Well, you got millions of Americans feeling something. So somebody needs to investigate the practices of these pharmaceuticals. I have heard from 100 different patients the problems with these medications and that they're not properly being reported by the pharmaceutical companies to the doctors. And then the doctors aren't giving the proper information to the patient, as well as they're not doing their proper due diligence, understanding how these medications work in their patients' bodies. And that's a big problem. I mean, anybody with a heart condition should be very careful with a steroid, nasal or not. That I highly suggest. Now remember, I'm not a doctor. I'm just somebody who spent 25 years getting hurt by them. Because I had a mother that was a nurse. She used to be a nurse. She couldn't pass her paperwork again. When I started living with her, she wasn't allowed to be a nurse anymore. She could only be like a teacher's aide or a school nurse or things like that take less documentation. Honestly, she shouldn't have been around children. I hate to think what those children experienced in her office when she worked for that school. I bet you could find at least 10 patients of the school nurse that talk about how the school nurse is evil and they're afraid of her. I guarantee you these children were petrified of my mother as a school nurse. I bet you $100 on there's some kids out there that were petrified by her. Because I lived with her, I know it. I know how she gets when there's no supervision. Even when there's supervision. Even when there's supervision, she still exhibits these behaviors. So I spent a lot of time getting drugged. I had medications given to me that I shouldn't have had given to me. I had ones that weren't prescribed to me that were given to me. I had pharmaceuticals given to me from doctors that I didn't need that were misdiagnosed thanks to my mother. You gotta keep in mind, doctors are only as good as the information you give them. If the doctors aren't given all the information, then they can't help. And that's probably part of the problem. The pharmaceutical companies are not giving the doctors all the information. Patients don't give the doctors all the information. And then you got people who might have a mental disorder who don't want to deal with it because their generation, oh no, we can't have a mental disorder. We can't have any of that going on because we're from a different generation. So when you keep all that in your mind, when you think about all that type of stuff, yeah, we have a big problem. Doctors are only as good as the information you give them. And it's not just you, it's what the pharmaceutical companies give them, it's what you give them, as well as it's what they actually research and do their due diligence on. A lot of doctors just want to give you a handful of pills and send you away. And that doesn't work for everybody. There are lots of people who need a diagnosis and they need proper treatment. And if they don't get those things, then you get hurt. I got hurt very badly. The meds that I was taking were causing horrible side effects, and when I reported these side effects like depression, suicide, heart palpitations, even though these were different heart palpitations than the ones I talk about now, these were from a medication. They would just pound when I took this pill, and it would put me in this fear zone. I was afraid that I might not wake up in the morning. I mean, these medications were so serious. They were giving me so many pills, and they were doing so many things in my bed to me, that a lot of times I thought I might not wake up in the morning. I said, oh, these pills are going to kill me. These pills, oh, what is going on to my body? Oh my God, my body, my body. And then I would pass out from it. It was awful to live this way. It was traumatic to live this way. And it's because I had a psychotic person controlling medicine and lying to the doctors and manipulating the doctors so she could get attention and money from Social Security. And of course, I have to pay the price for that. She's not going to pay the price. She passed away before she could. I was still too young. I still had a lot to figure out. I still had a lot of work to be done. Now that I've started working on the work, I can process this and talk about it. But a lot of people are quick just to run on board with the pharmaceutical companies. Oh, don't worry, OxyContin is non-addictive. All these addicts, they must be imagined. Oh, no, the Suboxone lasts 24 hours in your system, but I've been on it for 3 years, and I'm on the same dose. Oh, well, see this paper, it says it lasts 24 hours in your system. And also keep in mind, when things are mass-produced in factories, there are duds. And I know at least 10 patients. Now, I don't take these ones because of it, but there's a thing called a film, a Suboxone film. And I have heard from at least 10 different patients, and in rehabs, probably another 10 patients, so that's 20 total, that they take it and nothing happens. They stay sick for the whole 24 hours. They don't see any change. And then they take another one and it works. And I have experienced this once or twice while on the films myself. I didn't pay much attention to it because I was on 2 or 3 a day. But I noticed that I took one and it felt like I just took a sugar pill. Nothing happened. And after doing my research, I found out that some medications are duds. That when they're mass produced in a factory and when they're mass produced in films. So this is a liquid, this is a paste that comes out and then they cut it out. It's not really made like a pill where it's measured, tested. And they only test 1 in every 100 in a batch. They don't test every single pill to make sure there's no duds. No, they test 1 in every 100 or 1 in every 1,000 or 1 in every 10,000. So one of the medications out there that has quite a bit, I mean a lot of duds going around, is a thing called the generic Suboxone films. That's naloxone and buprenorphine films in the generic brands. I have heard from several people that is completely junk, and they'll switch. Literally, me and hundreds of other people I've met will refuse to take that version of that medication. You can give us any other version, but we will not take that because we know it's only a matter of time before we hit a dud. And after you hit a dud with your medicine 10 times, you realize it's not all in your head and you need to do something about it. So also remember, you are your best doctor. If you know something's going on, you should do something about it, like ask your doctor to switch you to the tablets. Oh, these films that are generic seem to have duds in it. Not just me. I've experienced this for years with other people. It seems to be a very common occurrence. So you switch the tablets. You don't yell at your doctor. You don't go on some nut rampage because you're sick. No. You're your best doctor. Go in, tell your doctor that you're refusing to take that and you need a replacement for it. But keep in mind, these pharmaceutical companies have been doing this for years. In the last 40 years, their practices have gone downhill. They have no honesty and they have no integrity and they don't care who gets hurt as long as they profit. And if you don't believe me, just look at OxyContin as an example. It took them years and years and years and years of people dying and suffering before a single person listened. And the only reason why they're listening now is because rich people got hurt. Rich people got addicted and got hurt. So then people started looking into it. But if it's just the poor, if you think of a medication that just gets prescribed to the poor, like psychological pharmaceuticals, you got to be very careful. A lot of those psych meds have been overproduced. They have lots of deadly side effects, as well as they are way overprescribed to people who don't need it. Also, keep in mind, your child doesn't know his body yet, and he can't explain to you what's going on with his body. He does not have the words to describe his body yet. So it's up to the parents to be able to identify the symptoms that are going on, the side effects that might be hurting your child, and change that. It's up to the parents. A 5-year-old is not supposed to know what pills do to him. He doesn't have the words to do that. No, it's up to the parents to know what a good decision is. And if parents can't make a good decision with somebody else's body, then don't make any decision. Don't use medication, don't use drugs. If your 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old is going to be going on pills, you got to do your due diligence. You got to research the medications. You got to talk to the doctor about any side effects or changes that you're seeing. You got to sit down with your kid and have full conversations about what the pills are for, what your kid is experiencing, what side effects to look out for. You got to spend lots of time with your child. These are things that have to be done if you're going to pump your child full of pharmaceuticals. You cannot go abandon them in the woods. You cannot have your sister watch them every day. I mean, you got to have control of those pharmaceuticals. And to control those pharmaceuticals, you need to see the symptoms. If your child's having a seizure once every 4 years, but you haven't been there to see it, or you're not exerting the medication, or your child's having suicidal thoughts and depression, but you didn't read the paperwork where it says suicidal thoughts and depression, consult the doctor. Like, for instance, the medication list that I had, a lot of the side effects list would say, if your child has suicidal thoughts or depression, please consult your doctor, because this is a side effect of several medications I was on. But instead, they went up on the medication with me and added in a sprinkle of others. Did a lot more harm, because they didn't read the paperwork, they didn't do their due diligence, they didn't spend the time identifying what was going on with your body, as well as one of the two parents, my mother, wanted me to be disabled. She wanted Social Security. She had a narrative already planned for me. I was going to be disabled. I was going to collect Social Security at 18, and then they could go on vacations while that pays my bills. This was the narrative at age 5, 6, and 7 that was already made for me. And if something didn't fit that narrative, she had to make it fit. So there was a lot of problems in my case, but a lot of these are still happening today. We need oversight in the pharmaceutical industry, and we need to stop crippling children just for the hell of it. Mostly orphans. But out of all the pharmaceuticals, if you see any kid being taken from their mother, a lot of them go right on drugs right away. Because there is no parents, there is no supervision, there is no hour-long doctor. No, you see the doctor for 5 minutes, he picks out 3 pills, he pumps it, so the staff has an easier time. They sedate children, and then if a parent gets involved and triples that, it becomes dangerous. As well as if there's extra medications like Epicac. I was given a whole bottle, not just a normal dose of Epicac. I was given extra Epicac, enough to cause a permanent problem with my esophagus and stomach. I was given so much extra Epicac that for the rest of my life I will have acid reflux. There's a lot that goes with giving extra pills. I mean, this is way more than any recommended dose in the world. This is a whole bottle of Epicac poured in an 8-ounce cup. This is bad. This is very, very, very bad. You do not give extra medications to a child, especially a child that's already being loaded up on drugs. And if you got to spend the time identifying the symptoms. If you can't do that, if you can't spend the time with your child, then do not give him drugs. It's that simple. Like if you have older parents like I do, like my parents were very elderly, then you don't give your child drugs. You hire a nanny and you let the kid run around for a while. I was just hyper. When I was born, had ADHD. I couldn't concentrate. I was hyper. Many other children are born like that. But after all this shit, after all these pills, I have anxiety, PTSD. Those are real ones. I've been diagnosed with a false disorder of bipolar. I've been diagnosed with a false disorder of depression. I've been labeled suicidal. And all these medications have that right on paper. I mean, literally, the medications, like 3 or 4 of the ones I'm taking every day, have side effects of depression and suicidal thoughts, as well as their very sedative medications that knock you out. So one minute I'm knocked out, then the medication wears off and I'm hyper. Then they give me more pills, I'm knocked out. Then the medication wears off and I'm hyper. Then they give me more pills, I'm knocked out. Then the medication wears off and I'm hyper. What does that look like? Bipolar. But you know what's funny? As soon as I took myself off the medication, oh, my bipolar was cured. Now I'm just always hyper. There's no more downs. I never have a down. I, I was able to figure out what was going up with the ups and downs. It was all these crazy drugs I was on. And that's expected. When a drug sedates you, you're going to go down. And then if you take coffee or if you let the drugs wear off and you have ADHD, you're going to go up. So that makes perfect sense. But not to a doctor that's only seen you for 5 minutes and hasn't spoke or heard this yet. And if the mother wants you to be bipolar, then he's not going to listen as well. Because my mother wanted me to be bipolar. She wanted me to be depressed. She wanted me on drugs. Because then she could continue pushing the Social Security case. ADHD is not enough. And the fact that I was moving around a lot really affected my education. I'm not saying that I was any genius to begin with, but missing 5 years of your whole life in school is a lot. If you put it all together, it equals up to about 5 years of missed school. I mean, that's 1/3 of my whole schooling. All in vans going across the country, sitting in a room in New Mexico, playing in the woods in New Mexico. I mean, I was more of an explorer for 18 months than going to any classes. And then to top it all off, when I moved to Chelmsford, and I was about, I don't know, 12 years old, but I really don't know the exact age, I was going to a school where we spent a whole year just playing with toys on the floor, playing with cards and playing with toys. They didn't even teach us how to read the cards. We were playing Yu-Gi-Oh, but yet none of us even knew how to read the cards. And for a whole entire year, this is how it went. That's because they were hemorrhaging money. The school itself was a scam. They were taking money from the state, and then they were just putting kids in like a classroom, locking the door, and then walking out. The teacher would be in the room when the kids came in, but then she would leave, lock the door, and then we would just be all playing on the floor. If we needed the bathroom, we knocked, let out. Sometimes she would unlock the door and leave it unlocked. They should only really lock the door if we were being bothersome and going in the hallway. But there were no books, no lesson plan. There was nothing being taught all day long. We would go play wiffle ball. We would play with Yu-Gi-Oh cards and toys for a whole entire year. These are 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds. These are not toddlers. Keep that in mind. This is right before middle school. This is before I went to middle school. So I started my middle school in middle school Chelmsford High and another school called MEC. Those are not it. This was before middle school. This is before I started middle school, but right before. Literally like the year before I started middle school, all I did was play toys. That's a big problem. But does anybody care that I missed out on my education, a right that I demand to have? No. I told my father. Did he do anything about it? No. While other parents were suing the school, while other parents got paid for that school's mistakes, I was left to suffer. I told my father, the school is not doing lessons plans and something is going on there. Does he do anything? He calls the school, and then I'm brought in front of all the children and punished and stood to stand there while all the other kids pick on me. Then we go right back to toys the next day. While other parents got reimbursed for the way that their children were treated, My parents just wanted to go on vacation. They did not care that I had to pay for their consequences. Who has to pay because they didn't listen? I do. Who has to pay for the lack of education? I do. Who has to pay for all the drugs being put into his body? I do. Who has to pay for having a psychotic mother projecting her or having a mental illness? I do. I had it projected onto me. I have to pay for that. And I also have to pay for my own mistakes. I did drugs. I stole a couple times. I'm extremely honest. So they'll call me a liar, but that's just bullshit. I lied no more than any other child, and I became more and more honest as things went. I had a belief all the way at 15 called extreme honesty. I literally would go up to my father and tell him something he didn't know that I did bad. Hey, Dad, remember how Mom blamed me for a bunch of stuff? Well, later I ended up doing that exact thing that she blamed me for. That time I didn't do it, but because she kept on blaming me, I went out and got this. Or, oh, I'm not sure, but I burned a slug outside, and then I got locked up for a month. That's called extreme honesty. Knowing that you did something wrong, nobody knows about it, and then snitching yourself out. I do this all the time. It's called extreme honesty. Where if I do something on accident, where I drop a bottle of wine in a store, like I'm looking at a bottle of wine, but my nervous system slips it and it slips out of my hand. This happened about 10 years ago. I was holding a bottle of wine trying to read it, and because of my nervous system, it just slipped out of my hand and smashed on the floor. Now, I could have walked out of the store. I had a friend tell me, oh, we better leave, we better leave. I said, no, no, no. You leave and meet me outside. I went to management and told them I'm sorry, but I accidentally dropped the bottle of wine over there. They're going to need to clean it up. Do you need me to pay for it? They told me no. They said, oh, well, we respect your honesty, and you don't have to pay for it. Thank you for letting us know. That's what you do. You snitch yourself out. If you drop and break something in a store, you go up to management and tell them you did so. That's simple. But I wish people would really try to listen to what's going on in life. Listen to God. Look for the signs. Do your due diligence. Don't just ask for your life to easy. Don't ask for your life to be easy, because if you ask for your life to be easy, people are going to get hurt. The easy way is not always the best way. Keep that in mind. People can get hurt if you ask for your life to be easy.